Contenders, ready! Gladiators, ready! 3, 2, 1, the Gladiators!
Welcome to the Glad Pod, the podcast celebrating the best show of the 1990s. It is, of course, Gladiators. And joining me on this epic journey of a discovery, I'm going to call it, is everyone's favourite gladiator, Jet.
Oh, well, that is some introduction.
Now, the thing that I'm really toying with is, do I call you Jet throughout, or is it Diane, or what?
Do you know what, David? Whatever slips out, I'll answer to either. I think it's nearly 30 years on and I'm still trying to get used to it. So just whatever.
What I really can't believe, by the way, is that there wasn't actually a podcast for Gladiators.
No. We're doing it now.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is a huge compendium of an amazingly large show that spans the planet, because, of course, it was franchised from America to here, Germany, South Africa. You know, it's someone's going to make a start sometime.
I know. Well, yeah. Let's not forget about the original Gladiator show that was in the UK. Because I say original because obviously there was a revival on Sky. Yeah. So, for those, I'm sure everyone listening will know this. So 10th of October 1992 to the 1st of January 2000. And at its prime, and I didn't know this, Gladiators pulled in 14 million viewers.
I didn't know that. I thought we averaged about 12, but I didn't know.
There must have been, at its peak, though, it must have been about, but huge numbers you're talking about. Like, it's prime time Saturday night telly.
That's right.
8 series, 147 episodes, including 45 specials, 34 gladiators, 25 events. I struggled to name most of those 25, to be fair. And, of course, the venue was at the National Indoor Arena in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. The crowd, 7,000 in there, roaring you on. And that would have been at its prime. And it was nearly 1.5 million people, they reckon, that went throughout the 8 series. So
watching us live in the arena?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, so that's probably little kids all the way up to great-grandparents, I imagine, because it was the epitome of family TV, wasn't it? Family shows. Now, there were 12 original UK Gladiators, but only 4 remained until the final series. So what I want you to try and let us know is if you can remember who they are, because I struggled.
Saracen?
Yes.
Cobra?
Yes.
Lightning?
Yes.
I don't know the fourth one. No.
Wolf.
Wolf, of course. He did the whole lot.
Yeah. And I've just seen some of the last series, and he looks so old.
Oh, you can't be saying that. Well, he'll be in his 70s now.
Well, absolutely.
He was gladiating when he was in his 40s, and I find that unbelievable because, you know, I'd been in my early 20s and we all kind of averaged really sort of mid to late 20s. And to be athletic at that level, you know, it's quite something. And then Mike Wolf, he would have been in his 40s and his 50s when he was actually performing as a gladiator. That's quite something.
Yeah, well, to keep in that shape. So 200 contenders managed to take part in the shows. Do you know how many people applied?
No.
100,000.
Oh.
So that's a huge number of people who wanted to be a contender.
Yeah.
And the set, this is one thing that I liked, perhaps a bit nerdy, but the set weighed 200 tons and had to be transported to Birmingham 35.
It's very nerdy. Go on.
In 35 lorries.
Wow.
To get it up there. And also the Travelator. Did you know this? The day before the first episode, the Travelator, they realised... Oh, no, it wasn't Travelator. It was a slide on the Eliminator. Weighed too much. So they actually had to bring up the floor and reinforce it before the first episode could be shown.
I didn't know that.
I know.
I didn't know that. Where did you find that out?
Well, the wonders that be Google, I found that out.
Yeah, the wonders that be Google. Yeah. I know, because the Eliminator was something that fascinated me, and I can't speak for the other Glads, but we were never allowed on it because we were barred from playing on some of the events in case we got injured.
Oh, right.
So many injuries, so yeah.
Well, yeah, and there weren't so many obviously at the beginning because nobody knew how many injuries there was going to be.
True.
The one thing I wanted to play for you right now, actually, is I'd completely forgotten about this, and I think from memory I can remember the adverts leading up to it. to the first episode, but the actual very first episode, the actual beginning to that, sounds a little bit like this.
Many were called, but few were chosen. When London Weekend Television announced they were looking for super fit members of the public to appear in a new sports entertainment television series, the response was immediate and impressive. Over 2,000 hopefuls nationwide from all walks of life attended sports centres up and down the country, where they were put through a telling and exhaustive circuit training course. Contenders were expected to cycle 1 kilometre, row 500 metres. The men had to bench press 40 kilograms 30 times, and the women 20 kilograms 20 times, and finally run 800 meters and all against the clock. For some, the effort was just too great. Exhaustion, nerves, and dehydration were the main causes of failure to complete the course. But for others, a catch of breath, a quick drink, and they were ready for the next round. As many chin-ups as possible in 1 minute, or as many push-ups for the girls. From over 2,000 tryouts, just 24 contenders went forward to the National Indoor Arena in Birmingham, where inside we can meet 4 of the contenders who passed those grueling tests.
So that was the build-up. That was a summary of how that very first episode, to really set the scene. And I know we're gonna speak further with you about the Times Gladiators, but just building up to that first and those tryouts, how intense were they? Because it sounds by that description that they were pretty intense.
It was. I mean, I was a gymnast as a child, so something like gym tests and a army assault course was kind of a bit of fun for me. And so I think the females at the time, there wasn't very many women who could actually get through the whole of the tryouts, to be honest, because there was a lot of upper body, like rope climbing and pull-ups and things. And unless you'd been a gymnast, to be honest, women would have found that very, very, very difficult. And I seem to think that they only selected me because I was just one of the only women that could actually get through the tryout. It wasn't anything more flattering than that. It was like, we're going to have you. We're going to call you Jet because at least you're the only one who can do it.
Well, out of the prizes given to the contenders, there were 12 cars and prizes totalling more than 450,000. And I'm trying to work out whether that was £450,000 in 1990s money,
yes,
or have they implied inflation onto that? Because I'm sure that was a lot more money back then.
It was.
So that is the show, and that was the first clip before the first show. So we know what that's all about. But what I wanted to perhaps go into now is why this podcast. And for me, I would say that I started to think about it not long after I met you. You'd been on This Morning, where I work. It was celebrating the 25th anniversary, wasn't it?
Yep.
And that was when I obviously met all of you. There was, I can't remember who exactly was there. No, James was there, Hunter,
Ace, Warren,
yeah,
John Anderson was there,
yeah,
Helen Panther, who we'll be speaking to a little bit later on. Who else was there? I can't remember. There was about 4 or 5 of us. They tend to group us together still.
And because it was the 25th anniversary,
yeah,
there was a lot of obviously press around that at the time. It just got me thinking about just life after Gladiators, but also for me as a fan to actually learn a bit more about what it was like as being a gladiator at the time. But do you know what? It wasn't until I actually was watching back some Alan Partridge and I heard this clip. And actually, do you know what? I'm going to play it for you first and I'll come back after that.
Jets from Gladiators to host a Millennium Barn Dance at Yeovil Aerodrome. Properly policed, it must not, repeat not, turn into an all-night rave.
So I heard that clip and I wondered if Jet had ever hosted a barn dance in Yeovil Aerodrome.
I haven't, but I'm going to.
But not in Yeovil?
No. It's going to be in Norwich.
Well, of course it would be. It has to be because of Alan Partridge.
I'm going to be there. It's a bit of a Mickey take thing, but why not?
Oh, absolutely.
I said yes to do it. I thought, well, do you know what? Why not have a little bit of fun?
Well, it's such a classic clip from
yeah,
Alan Partridge.
Thank you
as well.
for reminding me.
Would you appear in? Because obviously Alan Partridge has come back. Would you have you ever been asked to be on it? That's so bizarre because there's a clip as well of him dancing along to Jet.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of you on the side.
I know.
So there's all these references, and yet they've never asked you.
If you go on Twitter or other platforms are available and follow the Alan Partridge character, he only follows Shakira. So I'm just not that popular for him anymore. But he only actually follows Shakira. Yeah.
See, I think the storyline would be you and Alan Partridge go on a date.
Oh, I'd love that.
I mean, for Alan Partridge, that is like the ultimate. So that would be just brilliant. But from that moment, I'm thinking, well, actually, has Jet ever done that? Because surely, but I mean, how quickly after he said that did you get asked about it?
I didn't. It was only when people were pointing it out to me. I remember the scene where he's jumping around on his hotel bed.
Yeah.
And he's got my signed picture or framed picture of me as Jet in his hands. So I think there was lots of people pointing it out to me after that. I mean, I felt kind of flattered because it's such it's so iconic, really, isn't it? Alan Partridge, yeah.
Well, he could have. There are probably many people he could have picked as well. So it obviously was striking at the iron of what was hot in the 1990s.
Yeah.
But
Come on, ask me now.
But from wondering about that, then I think, well, for both of us, we started to snowball. Actually, we could ask, Cobra about this or whatever, and it all started to sort of formulate. So we're starting on quite an epic journey. And it's only when we sat down and started to work out who we could speak to. I mean, the list of gladiators, both throughout the original series and the revival.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you hoping to get from this journey that we're about to go on?
For me, personally, it's a great chance to catch up with some incredible people who we spent a really intense few years working together. Because it was, you've got to remember that we'd hang around each piece took about 7 to 8 hours to film, and you've got to remember that you're sitting and waiting around in your tiny bits of lycra for just 30 seconds or a 2-minute event, and so the kind of the tension, the scrutiny, and also the win rate, because the producer said, it doesn't matter if you don't win all the time because we've got to give the contenders a chance. However, if you didn't win a lot, they'd be like, "What's wrong with you?
Really?
Oh, yeah. Your win rate's not very good this year."
So it was it almost like you needed to be close enough to. So there was a challenge. So it wasn't as if it was too easy for the contenders. That it was good TV.
Good TV. That's exactly what it was. I mean, the contenders got very little training time, I felt, on the events, other than we had, because over the years you can kind of build up a little bit more familiarity with, say, something like the wall, because the wall, you've got different routes. You've got the right side and the left side of the wall. So yeah, you're going to have to really work hard to get excellent at the events. For me, for instance, Hang Tough was a very high-profile event, but it was very specialist, and not everybody could do it that easily.
Yeah.
So I felt sorry for the contenders because they didn't actually get that much exposure to training up on the event, so they couldn't be that much of a good match for some of us. So, yeah, I mean...
So good to catch up with.
Good to catch with the originals, absolutely, and the ones that I didn't know that well. And I'm like you, I'm a bit nosy, I'm a bit curious. I've done a bit of broadcast and journalism and stuff, and I think I like asking questions, and I like to sit patiently and wait for the answers.
Yeah, but you've got those, and you've got, as you say, the Gladiators from second series through to 8, and there were quite a few, especially towards the end, that did sort of 6 to 8 or 5 to 8. And there was a few that only just did 1, like Phoenix.
Yeah.
We've got that. Then you've got the presenters.
Yep.
The contenders, of which we said there was 200, but the champion contenders, I think there's some really good stories there. John Anderson. You got to have John Anderson.
I know.
And sort of researching over the last sort of few weeks, the crew involved, from sort of producers all the way through to costume designers and set designers. I mean, reading up about the set was phenomenal.
I know, you surprised me then with some of those stats, but you've got to remember again who ever thought up this? It must have been sat around a table in America somewhere, because it's MGM, isn't it? Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Who was it who actually sat and went, I know, let's get a bunch of people, make them superhuman, put them against other superhuman people, contenders, stick them on all these strange events. I mean, who actually conceptualised the whole show? That's one of the things I want to get from this, is find out who did it.
Yeah.
Who's responsible?
It's a bit like a Who Do You Think You Are, but
Yeah.
for Gladiators. Obviously, super fans, I think it's great to get some of the fans involved, especially some of them that see you, all across the country even now. We know that there are celebrity fans out there who would have definitely been watching Gladiators. And then there's the revival show, which I think it's good that, because you were part of it as the backstage presenter, so you would have known some of the Gladiators. I think we can probably ask a few of the Gladiators that we get to speak to, especially from the originals, what they thought of the revival, because obviously it was supposed to come back, lasted sort of 2 series and that was it. But also, wouldn't it be great if we spoke to some of the Gladiators from the other shows, like US, Germany, that would be, to compare it. It may involve us watching a few more Gladiators.
I want that. I would love to catch up with the Americans, because they were the originals, and they were pretty awesome, to quote them. They were very, very good at what they did, and we had to follow in their footsteps and try and make the UK show just as exciting, just as brilliant as the original. Over there, and I think we did a really good job. I remember, I think Suzanne was saying Vogue about how the female gladiators didn't need to be that big and that sort of muscular like a bodybuilder, because they wanted the British girls to be sort of athletic, more slightly smaller, and more the power to weight ratio would have been better on the events had you not been so big. So I'm looking at myself now thinking I'm not very big. Put a little bit of weight on, but I am middle aged, so no. So yeah, they did I think the UK did a really good treatment on the original concept from America.
And I think the other thing I'm really looking forward to as part of this podcast is to hear from you, from the listeners, from the people who are going to be sort of digesting all of the different episodes we put out. So have you ever met a gladiator? And by that I don't mean at an organised event, I mean down the street you bump into someone. Have you employed or worked with a gladiator? Because after some would have gone, I know a lot of the gladiators have gone into fitness, but have you worked out with a gladiator would be another one. And I'm sure that especially the people like Cobra, I'm sure when we do speak to him, he probably got a few gym stories, because he's still in good shape, and I bet he still gets people asking him that as well. The most random place you've met a gladiator, maybe?
I like that one.
I think this might have been your one. Is a gladiator in your circle of friends? Because they may not have been friends with you at the time, because there's a cycle of friends, isn't it? Every chapter of life you get through another one, and maybe just has a gladiator helped you at all? So if you have got any stories like that, email us on thegladpod@gmail.com. Let's see how many times I stumble on that over this first series. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Now, we announced only just recently that we would be doing this podcast, and the response already has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for all of the comments that we've already had. Especially, the first few that I pulled up. So we got one from Jamie Wilson. I met Jet at Blockbuster in Weston-super-Mare. Now, the fact that you put Blockbuster in just shows you what the time is for that. Neil Wright said he met Jet in a photo shoot in 2019 at Coventry Comic Con. You won't have forgotten, apparently, because he took his top off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't forget. It's not every day you have an adult male going, I'll take my top off for you.
Well, do you know what? I'm not going to ask you this now, but Neil, do send us another email. Well, why did you take off your top?
Yeah.
I want to hear more of the details, how that all came about. Russ says he had the pleasure of running past Jet when she started the Great South Run last October.
Yes.
I know it's not quite a meeting, but it's as close as I'll probably ever get.
Oh, bless. There was 20,000 people at the Great South Run. It was a phenomenally successful day for the run organisers, but 20,000 people. So, yeah, I'd like to say I can remember you, but there was
probably quite a few people.
Quite a few, yeah.
Did you get a lot of people notice you when you do those kind of events, when you're running around?
Yeah.
and encouragement.
That's right, yeah.
I haven't heard of this event before, but Joe says he met you at Stoke. Is it Stoke-on-Trent?
Stoke-on-Trent,
is that the play on words?
Yeah, it is.
Honestly, one of the loveliest ladies you could meet.
Oh, thank you.
Rob says, I'm lucky enough to have met some gladiators at recent conventions, but Diane... Oh, he hasn't even gone for Jet. He says Diane. I've met a few times. She's amazing, lovely to us fans.
Hi,
It's
Rob.
always my favourite gladiator. James Stewart, I think you know James Stewart. He says
Yes.
he's seen quite a few at Comic-Con, but when he saw Jet for the first time, his heart was beating so fast, and he was so happy that I finally got to meet her. I liked her from when I was about 7 years old, and was over the moon when I saw her, and I will always be happy now. That's quite nice.
Thank you, James. I know exactly. And a beautiful bracelet that you made me as well. You made me a gorgeous bracelet.
Oh, nice.
I know.
I might add that to a question I'm going to ask you later. Anna on Twitter as well, she said, I met Jet when we were both on stage speaking at a UK housing staff conference a couple of years ago. She's now a psychotherapist, but all everyone wanted to hear about was her time as Jet.
That's right.
which is that a frustration, or is it a kind of just you just embrace it?
I embrace it. It to be taken seriously as a psychotherapist, because it's quite a serious job. It can get in the way a little bit. I think people kind of it's a juxtaposition of there she is as a gladiator, and there she is as a psychotherapist. It's kind of, are they diametrically opposed? I don't know. I think it's held me back in some ways, but I still do my day job as a therapist, and I enjoy it. So.
Now, Craig Hitchcock. Now, I've gone full name of you, Craig, because you're probably going to be watching and or listening. And he writes, I met several gladiators as a youngster, but none stick in my mind like the wonderful Jet in Mansfield. I love how there's some of the place names that people are putting out great. It must have been nearly 30 years ago. She was with Wolf. I got a signed picture that I really hope is still at my parents' house. But if not, can I have another one?
No problem. Who's that from?
Craig Hitchcock.
Craig,
we will... Do you know what? We'll send you one anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
But do you still have pictures that you...
Yeah.
Oh, right, great. So then definitely Craig. Craig, we'll be in touch and we'll get that sorted. So that's really just... Really a select few of those that have already come through. It's been
Thank you.
fantastic to get such great response, and just keep sharing your stories, because I think and go into detail as well. Email us, because meeting, I don't know, Saracen at a bookshop. Why were you there? Why was he there? Was he opening something?
Right.
Just we just need more of that detail, because I'm sure there's some absolutely brilliant stories out there. This episode, for me, was kind of like an introduction to our podcast, really, because I think I'm so excited about it, and there's so many different avenues, and the more I look into it, the more I've started to sort of get more and more into it. But I think fundamentally, especially the first two series, is just going to be hearing those stories and finding out from the people that were involved, people that were watching, and when I say involved as well, not just gladiators, I mean contenders and the crew as well.
Share your stories with us, absolutely.
I mean, hopefully it's whetted a few people's appetite, and we have a fuller chat with Jet next. Plus, we've got honestly a great lineup. So we've got from Cobra to Hunter, and from Panther to Vogue. Do let us know what you think of each pod, and do make sure, if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, that you give us a reflective review, a fair review, and let us know what you think. Any questions you've got, anything you want me to put to Jet, it's thegladpod@gmail.com. Just for now, I'll leave you with these wise words from a man who I'm hopefully we're going to speak to in a few weeks, John Sachs.
Good competition, good spirit, great sportsmanship as both contenders show mutual respect. Join us again next week for the ultimate challenge, the might of...